Welcome back to Mystery Garage. On this week's episode, I tell you why, just like the title states, I lied to you. Okay, so what did I lie about? Well, it wasn't intentional, just so you know. It ended up working out that way that I said last episode I was going to finish up all the little details on the Mk1 VR6 swap and the supercharger and that sort of thing. We were going to take it for a rip. As it turns out, and I'll just show you guys this for a quick second, they're doing a major paving project on my street. And if you can see, you can't really see it in the middle of the road there, but there's super high ruts all over the entire road. So taking the VR6 for a drive on this isn't going to happen. On top of that, I'm just way too excited. Last week, from another guy locally to me here on Instagram, he pointed out a car that was for sale on one of our for sale listings around the local area, and I looked at it at first and I kind of liked it, so I messaged the guy to see if I can go take a look at it. When I went there initially, I should say, I thought it was a little more rough than I was wanting to get into. I've always wanted one of these cars for a long time. I loosely say car, and you'll see why in just a second. But if you follow me on Instagram, you already know where this is going. I ended up looking at the car, and I actually kind of walked away. I wasn't too pleased with kind of the amount of work it needed for what he was asking. So I thought, well, rather than just straight up walking away from it, maybe I'll send an offer the amount of money that I was willing to spend on it due to all the work. And I'll just let him make the decision from there. It wasn't really an offer intended for him to accept right away. I kind of thought maybe if it sat there for a little while and nobody else bought it, that he could fall back onto my offer. But nevertheless, a couple days later, he messaged me back and said, yeah, you can have it for that price. So what did I buy? Well, as you know, I'm a Mk1 guy, and Mk1 through and through. And one of the Mk1s I've never ever actually owned is a Mk1 truck. So how and why did I lie to you? Well, I did promise you that I was going to take this car out on the street. But as you saw, the road this week is just not in great shape. It's going to probably take a week or two for the road to be kind of replaced and repaved, at which time we'll make a crazy good video because it's a really long road. But at the same time, there's no sense in, I will finish this up and get it road ready. But I think today, since I brought this home, I personally even haven't gone through it too much. I did look at the body condition when I first got it, and I think it's time to take it out, give it a wash, and give it a quick inspection. Like I've said in a previous episode, I think it was one of my first or my second ones. As soon as I get a car, my favorite thing to do right out of the gate is to bring it home, wash it up, vacuum it, clean it up, and kind of look at what kind of core part of the project I have. Now, just for anybody who's probably going to ask me what is my intentions with this car, well, I bought it for a couple of reasons. One, I've always wanted to pick up, and I've never actually owned one. Two was that I thought this channel really could use a Mk1 that's more of a running, driving kind of, I wouldn't say a restoration, but more of like a car that I use and drive on the channel as well as fix it up as we go, as opposed to something that was already done or more or less already done other than bodywork, and something that is a huge project, I think. And sorry for the beeping in the background again, this guy's paving my street, but it's got everything to do with a car that can be used on the channel and kind of basically started here, and it isn't such a deep project as the red car. Now, granted, down the road, once the red car is more complete, I don't think any of my cars will ever be fully finished. But once it is more complete, I'll take this truck off the road and we'll start to do a full build on that. My goal eventually is to 180 it. It's kind of what I really want to do with this truck. I've always wanted a truck that's 180 for some reason. So as soon as I saw it, I knew this had to be it. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll kind of see the look of the engine bay that I'm going for. It's not a fully shaved bay, but it's a very clean, simple bay. I think it's actually another Canadian car of the picture I showed, but I love the look of that kind of all black 180 setup. So I think we'll go there at some point. As far as what color body, I really like this green. I don't know, it's kind of like an army green, spray painted paint job. I kind of like the look of it, to be honest with you. I think it has a cool little, the flat paint kind of looks real neat. But nevertheless, let's pull this car out. Let's take a look at it. Once I brought it home, I don't know if you guys know, you've seen it in some of the episodes a little bit, but I have a 8-year-old son, and he's been into cars, most of his life, probably because I am, and it was just something that we got into together. But anyways, as soon as he saw this truck, he really liked it. So I think what I want to do with this, and what I wanted to kind of have as a kid was a project that I could build before I turned 16 and kind of build a car that I got to drive when I was 16. So I think after talking to him and him being really excited about this truck, I think what the goal is here is I'm going to build it with him. So I think on the channel we're going to get it running and driving, and he'll be in some of the episodes. Obviously we may not collab every single episode on this truck, but I think he's going to be a great deal of this build. He's super excited about it, so I think it's important for me to kind of let him play with the truck and learn from it, because if one day he's going to be driving it, it would be nice to have him have the satisfaction of the fact that he built the truck himself. So let's talk a little bit about this truck. First, I'm going to pull it out of the garage because I got all 3 cars jammed in here today. I think it might be nice just to get it out of the garage and take a look at it. So let's do that. So a couple interesting things to know about this car. Doesn't need a lot of work. Yeah, it does. It was a little bit almost to the point of, like I said before, of me walking away, just because it does have the rust issues that I talked about in my previous episode about, things you want to watch for when you're buying a Mk1, and strut tower rust, and so it's got some floor pan rust and that kind of thing. But it's all addressable, and I guess one of the things I wanted to kind of accomplish with this build is show that it doesn't need to be show quality right out of the gate. I have a hard time myself in not going full bore on these cars, so actually any car I've ever had in general, I usually make it in such a big project that I never really get to the end of finishing it. So sometimes it's important that you take a realistic target for a car and you kind of set it and try and achieve it. So my target for this car right out of the gate, or this truck I should say, is to making it a running, driving, streetable, working project. I don't want to turn it into an up on jack stands type project at the moment. Down the road, yes, we'll do that, but right now I want to focus on getting it running, driving, get it out on the road, have some fun with it, and then from there we'll convert it into once I get the red car done, or on the road at least, then I'll have this car back in the garage and we'll do a full restoration on it. But for now, getting it running and driving is the goal. Couple cool things about this car. One, it has a round headlight front end, and again, it's something that you guys probably picked up on the episode when I was walking around it. It is a 1980s. Another thing that's unique about that is I'm Canadian. This is a Canadian truck, or sorry, I should say this truck is in Canada. The actual reality of it is Westmoreland in the United States produced these trucks from 1979 to 1983, I believe. And these trucks weren't available in the Canadian market until 1981. So interesting fact, this is 1980. So this in reality was a US truck that at some point was brought up to Canada. It did come or were produced in the Westmoreland factory where it had square headlight front end, just like my 82 does in my shop with the VR6 in it. Some point locally, and I know once I posted a picture of this on my Instagram, somebody said that they completed the round headlight swap on this. This does have a round headlight swap. These trucks never, at least to the best of my knowledge, in North America came with round headlights. Shortly around 1982, 1983, they started being produced in Europe under the name of Caddy, C-A-D-D-Y. In the United States, they're always just listed as a Rabbit pickup truck. So essentially what it is, from the line of the box right about here forward, if you kind of cover that off, it's a four-door Rabbit. So it's got the four-door front doors, so they're shorter front doors, and then it has a pickup box in the back. Everything from basically this line back of the car is specifically Volkswagen pickup. Everything from this line front of the car is Volkswagen Rabbit stuff. And I say that because it's got, you know, coil front suspension just like normal Rabbits do, but in the back of a pickup it's actually got a leaf suspension with an axle on it. So that's something that's different. It's one of the only Volkswagens, I think, or at least that I know of, in the Mk1 family that has leafs altogether. So it's got a straight axle in the rear end, obviously because it's front wheel drive. This particular truck has the round headlight swap in the front. It's got a Euro front bumper. In Canada, they actually came with, or Canada and US, they came with a one-piece rear bumper, or in the base model options, they came with no bumper at all. In Europe, they came with a two-piece rear bumper that allowed for the longer license plate in between. And you can also tell the difference there, because if you have a European Caddy manufactured in Europe, your license plate lights will be in the two halves of the bumpers. In a US or North American made Caddy, your license plate lights are actually attached to the back of the roll pan area. So it's a small little indicator of the two differences. This truck has been heavily modified. Like I said, I think it's gone through quite a few different owners. So as I jump into it, we're going to see a lot of different things going on. One, we got the round headlight swap, like I just mentioned. It's got coilovers in the front, it's got drop plates in the rear. I don't even know if the engine's factory, it's probably not. The dash is definitely not factory because it's got an in-kilometer speedo, which essentially when it was originally made, this truck would have been potentially a diesel or gas. They did come in both in North America. But the Canadian models that were released in Canada were only diesel, 4 or 5 speed. So if this was originally a gas, it's definitely from the States, and it could be the factory engine. If it was a Canadian car, which we've already said it's not because it's 1980, if it was 1981, it would come with a diesel power plant in it. Now, I'm sure people in the comments are going to argue with me on that one, but if you guys do your history or you're looking it up, I might have made a slight mistake, but I'm pretty sure I nailed it. Those are the differences there. In the United States, you can get a 1.8 liter gas engine, or you can get the 1.6 diesel. So in Canada, we only got the 1.6 diesel option. As far as I know, like I said before, this car has been a multi-piece put together. The hood underneath is red. This truck was originally beige. That's been spray painted. It's got a blue top on parts of it, or blue box at least. So it's had multiple paint jobs since it was beige. It's now some Rust-Oleum type spray painted green, which I don't mind actually. It looks kind of neat. Those are fake splits. Those are some, crappy Audi capped wheels. I don't know what they are, but the one unique thing is they have a really weird bolt pattern. I think they're 1x108, or sorry, 4x108 or something to that effect. So it's got adapters on it. The adapters, like or dislike, the adapters poke the wheels out what I think to be the perfect amount. I know it's hard to see because I'm looking at it from side angle, but if you look at it from the front angle of the car, you can look back in some of the video footage I made. It's got a really aggressive poke angle. Maybe I'll show you that right now. I really like that look, how much it pokes. So I'm obviously not going to keep these wheels, but I am going to retain that fitment because I really like it. I think it looks pretty good on this car. It's aggressive. I'm going to keep the wheels small. The previous owner, to me, from what I understand, did a true Volkswagen projector headlight swap, meaning that he took projectors from a newer car and retrofitted them into the old cases of the Mk1 headlights. It's also got an early Mk1 grille. Again, all this stuff has been swapped at some point because these cars originally did come with the rectangle headlight setup, and actually came in Canada and the US with our ugly version of the aluminum bumpers, and this one's been swapped to a Euro plastic at some point, and it also has the deep rabbit lip in the front, which I quite like, but this one's pretty thrashed. As far as I understand from the engine, as the engine's concerned, this engine does not run, from what I understand. I haven't even tried it, but from what I was told, it hasn't ran for a long time, and it was parked due to some electrical issues. So it's got a lot of negative things working against it. It doesn't have an interior. As you can see in it, most of the interior is missing, carpet, that sort of thing. The engine electrical has been wet at some point in time, so a lot of that's kaput. This engine hasn't ran in a while, and it has rust issues. So all things considered, you know, I got it for a fairly good deal. It does need a lot of work, but like you guys have seen in my previous episodes, I do have a lot of spare parts hanging around. So I'm hoping to do this as a budget, take what parts I do have and get this thing up and running and on the road fairly quickly is kind of the plan. I'd like to have, like I said before, this car on the road and the VR6 on the road as well, but that's a heavily modified car. And then we'll also do the deep build on the red car. Again, I want to keep all the projects moving along, so this isn't meant to stall the channel at all. It's just to give a good variation of different types of projects, because you can get bored if I'm doing bodywork episode after episode after episode. Not only will you guys get bored watching that stuff, it also kind of gets a little bit tedious and boring to keep motivated on projects like that. So having a little bit of a switchover will be fun for all of us. I'm really keen on this truck. It's something I've wanted for a long time, and I think this is a pretty good example of, you know, what you would normally get in North America when you're looking at these trucks. I'm actually happy that it's not a diesel. I'm not a huge diesel guy. I do like the diesel engines, but I would much rather prefer gas. Like I said before, I do want to do a 1.8T swap down the road, so hopefully that's the plan. Anyways, I think what I'm going to do right now is as you guys saw, this truck is pretty filthy. I think what I'm going to do is actually take a hose and a sponge to it and see how she looks. If anybody ever tells you YouTube isn't hard work, I am sweating. It is hot. And if you're gonna bolt in seats, put in the proper bolts. Oh man. Anyways, got them out. As you can see, the condition of the floor plan in this car, that's why cars in this kind of condition aren't worth any more than $1,000 at best. You know, just because they're pretty rough, and it's got to be cleaned up, and it's got a pretty ugly stereo setup in here, and you know, mixed master parts. But we'll get this right. You know, the seats that came with the truck are definitely not factory to this truck, but they look to be almost like throttle leather seats or something. But they're pretty rough. They're like torn and holes worn in them, and they almost kind of look like they were actually. Now that I look at them, I think they were beige leather painted black. But anyway, these seats got to go. The interior's got to be cleaned up because that is rough. You know, and we'll get a vacuum cleaner in there. I'll cut all that wiring out and get ready to get it all cleaned up. Well, that escalated quickly. As you can see here, there's some absolutely serious tomfoolery going on here with this wiring. So as I tried to cut it out, I realized, you know what, I should just pull the dash and see what I'm getting myself into here, and this is a mess. So I think what the situation is here, I'm going to cut out what I know is not factory stuff. We'll see what I'm left with. And like I said before, this car has wiring nightmares to begin with, so I kind of anticipated this, so I'm lucky I have some backup car harnesses that we can try and use in a bit. But again, trying to stay away from making this a long-term project. All right, then we're back. As you can see, that looks a lot better than it did before. I don't know. Stereos and wiring and all that kind of stuff, man, it just gets crazy sometimes, and it takes out where these cars, especially whoever wires it, you know, you gotta make sure it's done right and not messy. This was definitely a messy job, but as you can see, I don't know, this car's a bit of a project. Obviously why I got it for the price I got it for, you know, it's like I said before, you know, I did hesitate on getting it because there's some, I don't know if you can see, but there's definitely some rust in the floor there. There's a hole through it almost. Actually, there is a hole through it, not almost. There's a hole in the floor there. There's up in the rain tray. Weirdly enough, I've never seen that rust before. There's a rust hole through into the rain tray from the interior, which is why the fuse box got all wet. But everything's all cleaned up now. It did kind of roll over into the engine bay. There was some wiring I needed to pull out down in here, but I kind of pulled all that out, and everything's a lot more cleaned up than it was. Take a look here now on this side. Yeah, I mean, everything's more or less factory now, so wiring it all back in. You can see there's some rust in the floor, but the biggest issue is really, let me see if we can show you that. It's right here. There's actually a hole right through the floor, which isn't really ideal. And then if I can switch the camera up here, you can see, and I've never seen rust here before, but there's a rust hole right through up in there. So that's going to be an interesting repair, but I need to repair that because otherwise water is going to keep coming in onto the fuse panel here. So obviously why there's a bit of an issue. Now when I look at it, it actually doesn't look that bad, so I'm not sure, or sorry, I shouldn't word it that way. I'm not positive that we can actually make this work without swapping it out, so we'll definitely give that a shot. Like I said, I haven't even tried to start the car before, so we'll give that a chance. You know, there's rust all up in here too. That seems to be more surface rust, to be honest. I don't think that's actually a hole. That can all be cleaned up, but over here, over in the direction over here, there's more of a hole there, so we'll get that all fixed up. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the interior. This guy kind of got really sidetracked. The intention was to wash the car, but I wanted to kind of vacuum out the floor and everything first. So what we'll actually do is we will back up from this. I'll close up the car. We'll go ahead and wash it, and I'll clean out the interior and keep working at it. Well, that's about it for today. I thought that was a pretty cool project I wanted to share. And again, this is going to be a realistic project car. This is a car that we're going to try and get running. We're going to get driving on the street, and then we're going to make modifications as time goes on. So, but in the coming episodes, it might not be next week or what have you, but we'll still get to work on this truck. Obviously, we got some interior work and a little bit of rust repair, but again, some of that rust repair I might leave for future episodes. We'll have to see how it goes. But again, I thought this was a pretty neat truck. Pretty excited about it. And you know, like I said in the beginning of the episode, sorry I lied to you. Sorry today didn't end up being the VR6 drive day, but as you remember, my street still is a couple days away from being finished. So I think there's some time we need to kill until that road gets all done, and then we'll do some nice driving episodes on that road. So thanks again for watching, you guys. Again, if this is something you're into and you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Please leave comments, tell me what you think. You know, obviously this whole channel is a work in progress, but we're having a lot of fun doing it. So thanks very much, guys. Until next week, take care.